This is an archaeological site in China. It's one of the most important discoveries of the 20th century. And it's also home to something sinister. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. When I asked you guys for suggestions of topics to cover, one of you suggested this. I've wanted to do something on archaeology in China for a while now, so I thought, why not? The site in question is called Yingsu, and it's located near modern-day Anyang. In the 1970s, archaeologists discovered the remains of what might have been the largest city in the world at that time. They identified huge defensive walls, grand palaces, shrines, storage pits, workshops, houses, and even what may have been the world's first steel factory. The Shang Dynasty had lasted for over 300 years, and during that time, they built quite the metropolis. But there was more to Yingsu than bricks and wood. Archaeologists also found thousands of pieces of pottery, hundreds of weapons and ornaments made of bronze and jade, and thousands of turtle shells and animal bones. And that's where things get weird. These turtle shells and bones were used for a form of divination known as tasseography. Basically, they would inscribe questions onto them, put them into a fire or otherwise heat them up, and then interpret the cracks that formed based on their shape and location. In total, about 40,000 pieces of these inscribed oracle bones were found at Yingsu, and when experts started going through them, they realized that they had something truly special. Many of these bones date back to the early days of the Shang Dynasty, meaning that we can use them to see how the Chinese way of life evolved over time. We can learn about their mythology, religion, and politics from these ancient inscriptions. One of the most interesting aspects of these bones is how they document the rise of the Shang Dynasty itself. These pieces show how the Shang eventually overthrew the previous Xia dynasty and took control of the region. This was during a time when the Yellow River was an important trade route, connecting the regions that would later become Henan and Shandun. The Shang controlled both banks, which gave them an advantage over their rivals to the east. The Xia dynasty, on the other hand, only controlled the western bank. As the Shang grew stronger, their king Tang decided to invade. He commissioned a large fleet of boats, 130 of them in all. With each boat carrying 100 elite soldiers, they attacked the Xie across the river and won easily. That's because the Xie had set up camp on the wrong side of the river. To make matters worse, their king was drunk at the time and didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. We know all of this thanks to a single piece of bone. A single piece of bone that was found at Yingsu and dated to around 1600 BC, but that's not all. We actually have records of the Shang's victory over the Xia multiple times. The first record comes from a turtle shell dating back to 1650 BC, it reads. The army of King Tang of Shang defeated the Xia at the Mai River, so we know it happened before 1650. Another inscription on a different bone pushed it earlier to 1600 BC. There's also a third inscription that mentions the battle, but it dates to 1200 BC. According to Edward Berman, who translated many of these bones, this record could be a later re-recording of an older event. And if that's the case, then we have records of the Battle of Meg Zero going back to 1800 BC, however. This isn't the only thing that these bones tell us about the Shang Dynasty. They also tell us about their culture and society. For example, these bones provide insight into Shang religious beliefs. They offer glimpses into Shang rituals, showing how the Shang viewed the afterlife and what they did to prepare for it. We also gain insight into the daily lives of the common people. Some of these bones even indicate the presence of slavery. For example, one bone refers to someone named Yu Yi, who is described as a slave taken from the state of Ba. There's also another bone that talks about prisoners captured from the state of Fang. The bone says, Fang Fang is captured and made into slaves, demonstrating the reality of slavery during the Shang Dynasty. But however you feel about that, it's undeniable that these bones provide us with a unique window into the past. They allow us to better understand the Shang Dynasty and the world they lived in. However, there's another side to these bones, a darker side. While many of the inscriptions are filled with triumphs and victories, others foreshadow the decline of the Shang Dynasty. Some bones warn of disasters, others hint at royal strife, and some predict rebellions among the people. In some cases, these cracks weren't just signs of victory, they were warnings of defeat. For example, one of the bones tells the story of a battle between the Shang and the southern tribe of Bia. At first, it looks like the Shang are going to win, but then the text says, BA will harm the army and defeat the Shang. Sure enough, the next two lines talk about how the Shang forces suffered heavy casualties, losing 10,000 soldiers and having their king and 3 of his sons captured by the bees. Another bone hints at the Shang kings being defeated by a rival state. It reads, Zhang will defeat the Shang, and given the number of people who died in the battle, it sounds pretty bad. Then there's this bone that predicts disaster. It says if you go out to hunt, you will encounter a great disaster. And sure enough, there's another line saying, disaster struck the ruler's hunting party. Either the Shang rulers ignored the warning, or the omen was vague enough that they couldn't figure out what exactly was going to happen. Either way, disaster struck. Then there's this bone that says there will be rebellion in the capital. It's possible that this is referring to the aforementioned defeat at the hands of the BA people. Or maybe it's predicting a future revolt. Whatever the case, this bone is one of the few that have a happy ending. It says that after the capital falls, a new ruler will take over and bring peace and prosperity back to the land. The Shang Dynasty did eventually collapse, but it wasn't due to any of the disasters predicted on these bones. Their demise came about 200 years before the last inscription on these bones. And according to legend, it was caused by the Shang king's younger brother, King Zhou of Shang. According to the records of the Grand Historian, King Zhou was greedy and tyrannical, and he pissed off just about everyone in his empire. The nobles and princes hated him, the commoners hated him, and even the gods hated him. So they teamed up and got rid of him. Now there are some other versions of this story, but according to Edward Borman, the basic story goes like this. The king invited 8 local lords to his capital for a banquet. During the feast, he poured wine into their cups and said, "Do you know what's in these cups?" Naturally, they said no. Zhou told them that it was poison. He then revealed that he had poisoned all the wine, and he killed 7 of the lords. The 8th one managed to escape and tell the other states what had happened. Naturally, they were pretty pissed, so they assembled an army and marched on the capital. King Zhou tried to defend himself, but he was no match for the combined armies of the other states. He fled into the wilderness where he lived out the rest of his days as a beggar. Although there are no bones that specifically say that King Zhou did any of this, there are a lot of bones that tell us how unpopular he was. For example, one of the bones shows us how the Shang army lost against the state of BA. And the reason for this was supposedly because King Zhou kept insulting the BA king. There's also a record of Zhou humiliating the leader of the state of Yu, which led to a rebellion. And another bone shows us how the people of Yangcheng were angry about the Shang king raising taxes. So maybe the records on the bones aren't prophecies, but maybe they're historical accounts. And if that's true, then we have proof that the Shang Dynasty collapsed for the reasons written about in these bones. That being said, I think there's a little bit of truth to both ideas. Yes, these records show us how unpopular King Zhou was, but I don't think that alone caused the Shang Dynasty to fall. Instead, I think the Shang Dynasty was weakened by the same problems that plagued every other ancient society. Natural disasters, famine, disease, war, etc. The Shang rulers tried their best to combat these issues. Sometimes they failed, as evidenced by the bones themselves. And that's why I think these bones are a good reminder that nothing in life or in history is permanent. Nothing lasts forever, whether you're talking about good times or bad. The Shang Dynasty is a perfect example of this. At its peak, they ruled a massive territory and had one of the largest cities in the ancient world. But within a couple hundred years, they were gone, wiped out by the very forces that the Shang kings believed they had conquered. As you can see, the bones that were intended to preserve the glory of the Shang Dynasty also preserve the warnings of its end. The oracle bones are not just documents of success, they are also forewarnings. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? What do you want to see on my channel? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, I want to thank you all so much for watching and supporting this channel. I hope you learned something new today, and I'll see you guys next time. In the heart of China, hidden within the chambers of the earth, lie the secrets of a forgotten world. They are fragile whispers from a time long past, etched onto animal bones with painstaking precision. Yet, despite their age, their message is as clear as the day it was written. For here in the depths of a tomb lies the cradle of Chinese civilization, the very foundation upon which one of the world's greatest empires was built. These artifacts are known as oracle bones. They are the remnants of a bygone era when humans first began to document their thoughts and ideas. These bones are our connection to the dawn of human history, and they hold within them the key to understanding how we went from nomadic tribes to modern society. When archaeologists unearthed these bones, they were greeted by a sight that made their hearts skip a beat. Carefully inscribed across their surface were characters that told stories of a bygone era. Each mark, each symbol was like a piece of a shattered mirror, reflecting a long-lost world. As they delved deeper into the mystery of these bones, they uncovered tales of ancient rituals, of kings and commoners, of love and war. It was as if the spirits of those ancient people had reached back through time to share their stories with the modern world. But what truly makes the oracle bones so powerful is not just their role in preserving history, but their ability to preserve memory. These bones act as living monuments, reminders that even though civilizations rise and fall, the memory of their existence can be preserved forever. In the weathered grooves of these ancient artifacts, we find a reflection of ourselves, a reminder that our memories are the threads that weave together the tapestry of human history. Yet there is another layer to these bones, a secret that has been hidden for centuries. What if these bones could teach us more than just history? What if they held the key to understanding the very essence of memory itself? Memory is a funny thing. It can make you feel like you're alive again, experiencing the world as you did in your youth. But sometimes it can also be a burden, a constant reminder of all that you have lost. As you grow older, your memories become more vivid. Your past self seems more real. This phenomenon of feeling closer to our past selves as we age is not just a personal experience. It is a universal truth that resonates with all of us. The oracle bones are a testament to this. They are a tangible link to a time when the world was very different. When we look at these bones, we are seeing the world through the eyes of our ancestors. We are experiencing the world as they did, and in doing so, we are reminded of the power of memory. Imagine yourself as an archaeologist standing before a display of these very bones. You run your fingers over their rough surfaces, feeling the weight of history in your fingertips. As you do, you can't help but feel a sense of connection to the people who came before you. Their stories are being brought to life right before your eyes, and you can't help but feel a sense of wonder at the power of memory. As you continue to explore the museum, you come across other artifacts from this ancient civilization. There are pottery shards, pieces of clothing, and even weapons. But it is the bones that draw you in the most. They are not just artifacts, they are storytellers. They are whispering tales of a bygone era, and you can't help but listen. Suddenly, you hear a voice behind you. Do you see that? You turn around to see an elderly woman smiling at you. Those bones, she says, her eyes twinkling. They're not just old artifacts. They're our storytellers. They're the ones who kept our history alive. She tells you stories of her own childhood, of how she would listen to tales of the past as a young girl, sitting at the feet of her grandmother. She would tell me stories of brave warriors and wise kings, she says, her voice filled with nostalgia. And I knew then that our past was something to be proud of. You think about the elderly woman and the stories she shared with you, you realize that the power of memory is not just in the artifacts themselves, but in the stories that they tell. The oracle bones are not just pieces of history. They are a link to the past, a reminder of all that has come before us. And they are a source of inspiration for the future. As you leave the museum, you carry with you the stories you heard and the memories you made. You think about the elderly woman and the wisdom she shared with you. You realize that the power of memory is not just in the artifacts themselves, but in the stories that they tell. The oracle bones are not just pieces of history. They are a link to the past, a reminder of all that has come before us. And they are a source of inspiration for the future. The journey through the halls of the museum has been nothing short of transformative. As you take your final look at the oracle bones, you can't help but feel a sense of awe at the power of human ingenuity. These ancient artifacts are a testament to the human spirit, a reminder that we are capable of great things. As you exit the museum, you carry with you the stories you heard and the memories you made. The elderly woman's words echo in your ears. Our past is something to be proud of, and you can't help but agree. The oracle bones have taught you that our past is not something to be ashamed of, but something to be celebrated. As you walk down the street, you see the bustling crowds going about their daily lives. See families laughing and playing, friends catching up after a long time. You see lovers holding hands, sharing a quiet moment together, and you can't help but smile. Life is good, you think. We are blessed to be alive in this moment, to be part of the human story. Suddenly, you feel a tap on your shoulder. You turn around to see a young girl with bright, curious eyes. "What's that?" she asks, pointing to the museum behind you. "Is it fun?" you ask, smiling. "Can I go there too?" The girl nods eagerly. "My grandma told me stories about those bones when I was little," she says. "I want to see them for myself." You look at the girl, and you remember the elderly woman in the museum. You realize that the stories of the past are not just for the old, but for the young as well. Our history is a gift to be shared, a legacy to be passed down to future generations. You take the girl's hand and lead her towards the museum. "Come," you say, "let's go and see the storytellers." Together, you and the girl enter the museum and make your way to the exhibit. As you stand before the oracle bones, you feel a sense of pride in being part of the human story. A story that began thousands of years ago and continues to this day. The power of writing is demonstrated by the simple cracks of these bones. These bones are more than just physical remains. They are cultural relics that bridge the past and the present. The memory they hold is not just in the grooves of the bones, but in the hearts and minds of those who come to see them. The legacy of these bones lives on. The written language they gave birth to is now a living, evolving entity. It's a tool that allows us to preserve and pass down the stories of millions of people worldwide. As you watch the young girl's eyes light up with wonder, you realize that the torch of memory has been passed to her. She is now part of the story. The eternal flame of writing continues to burn brightly, lighting the way for future generations. The oracle bones may be silent, but their message is clear. The power of memory is in our hands. It is up to us to keep the stories of the past alive, so that future generations can marvel at the wonders of our history. We hope you enjoyed this journey through time with us. One day in the 19th century, a farmer in Shandong province was digging a well when his oxen suddenly broke through the hard pan into a layer of soft, powdery soil. Excited by this discovery, the farmer carefully excavated over 100 pieces of turtle shells and animal bones from the site and presented them to Chinese scholars. These became known as the Yingxu, or Yin Ruins Oracle Bones, after the capital city of the Shang Dynasty, Yinyang, which is located near modern-day Yinsu. Although some experts doubted their authenticity, many more believed that these bones were genuine artifacts from the Shang Dynasty, which lasted from around 1600 BC to 1046 BC. The Shang kings allegedly used the bones as a kind of ancient computer to communicate with the gods, asking for advice on everything from warfare to the weather. In return, the gods would presumably whisper their answers to the Shang kings in dreams, which were then recorded onto the bones. This practice is known as divination, and by cracking open the bones and carefully examining their insides, Shang priests could apparently glean insights into the will of the gods. Many of the inscriptions on the bones chronicle grand events like wars, natural disasters, and the reigns of successive kings. Some are even used as a sort of checkbook, documenting payments made to officials, laborers, and entertainers. A few include predictions about future events, such as an eclipse, while others preserve the results of sacrifices made to various deities. Altogether, the bones offer an incredible window into one of China's earliest great dynasties. You might think that these inscriptions would have mostly focused on the Shang kings' military victories and diplomatic missions. But actually, although the oracle bones did record those kinds of events, they also preserved the ordinary details of everyday life, too. Some inscriptions chronicled ritual sacrifices, others documented the weather, the harvest, or even personal health issues. These mundane records are just as important, for they show us the human side of the Shang Dynasty. To learn more about how Shang kings and nobles lived, let us take a look at 5 of the most interesting examples of domesticity found on the oracle bones. First, though, if you're enjoying this episode and you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so, and leave us a comment below to let us know what you want to see next. The Shang Dynasty was a time of great upheaval and change in China. As the first true empire to unify the region under one banner, it would be easy to assume that everyone's attention was focused on the exploits of the military and royal court. However, an examination of the oracle bones suggests otherwise. They provide evidence of a bustling economy and an active populace. Records show that merchants traveled across the empire to trade goods such as silk, bronze, and jade, while farmers planted crops and herded animals. There was even a postal system in place to deliver messages quickly across long distances. This raises another question, though. If the Shang kings were constantly at war and expanding their territory, where did all this economic activity take place? To answer it helps to understand the layout of the Shang capital. Like many cities of its time, the capital was surrounded by tall walls to protect its inhabitants from invaders. Inside the city, there were palaces, temples, and workshops. Outside the city, but still within the walls of the kingdom, were farmlands, pastures, and villages. In this way, the Shang Dynasty had a sort of concentric structure. The king and his court were at the center, and then everything else radiated outward from there. During the Shang Dynasty, there were hundreds of settlements like this across China. So as the dynasty expanded, more and more of these self-contained economic engines were added to the mix. This led to a period of unprecedented growth and prosperity. Of course, not everyone benefited equally, but on the whole, life during the Shang Dynasty was better than it had been for previous generations. The people were wealthier and more connected than ever before. They could travel further and more easily than ever before. They could also communicate more quickly and efficiently than ever before. All of this made the Shang Dynasty a dynamic and exciting time to live. It was also, however, a very busy time to live, because no matter who you were, you had a lot to keep track of. For example, on one bone, we can read that a certain official named Yu was busy collecting taxes and grain. Another bone mentions a group of laborers who were working on a construction project. And yet another tells us that a contingent of troops was on their way to assist the king in battle. With so much going on, it's no wonder that Shang nobles turned to divination to help them make sense of it all. By recording their dreams on turtle shells and animal bones, they could refer back to them whenever they needed guidance. In this way, the oracle bones provide us with a rare glimpse into the hectic lives of the Shang elite. Now that we've established that the Shang nobility had a lot to worry about, let's take a closer look at a few of their particular concerns. For instance, one bone mentions the aching tooth of a royal family member. It's not clear who exactly is suffering from this toothache, but it's possible that it was the king himself. After all, he was the most important person in the kingdom, and so would have received the best medical care available. But it could also be a member of the king's court, or even just an ordinary citizen. What's interesting about this inscription is that it shows that even the most powerful people in the kingdom are not immune to the aches and pains of everyday life. It also demonstrates that Shang Dynasty doctors were skilled enough to diagnose and treat dental problems. This is evident from another bone which mentions a tooth extraction carried out by a shaman. It seems that the patient made a full recovery, as there are also records of him hunting and engaging in other physical activities. Of course, not all health problems were so easily remedied. On one bone, we find an entry describing the death of a young nobleman. He was only 21 years old when he passed away, likely from a serious illness. The king was deeply affected by his friend's death, and asked the gods for a sign as to what had caused it. The inscription does not say whether or not the king received an answer, but it's possible that the oracle bone itself may have been the response. After all, Shang rulers were known for their ability to interpret the will of the divine, and they likely saw omens everywhere, not just in the cracks of turtle shells. When reading these stories, it's important to remember that they are not simply tales of tragedy and pain. The Shang Dynasty was a time of great innovation and achievement. And despite the challenges they faced, the people of this era were able to create a rich culture that has survived for thousands of years. The oracle bones are a testament to this, as they show that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can prevail. Life during the Shang Dynasty was not without its pleasures. When the king was in a good mood, he might take his time to enjoy a game of divination. Sometimes, though, he had more important matters to attend to. During one year, for instance, he worried that his crops would not grow back after the spring floods. In this case, he asked the gods for help and promised to sacrifice a cow in thanks for their support. Fortunately for the king and his people, the crops grew back without any major problems, and he kept his promise by sacrificing the cow. This example shows that even though the Shang kings were powerful and wealthy, they still had to worry about things like food and the weather. It also demonstrates that they were willing to work hard to make their empire prosperous. Speaking of prosperity, the Shang Dynasty was a time when bronze vessels became highly ornate and were often decorated with scenes from mythology or daily life. One oracle bone describes a banquet that was held in honor of the king. The bone is decorated with 8 geese, 2 dragons, and a pair of tigers. Geese were a symbol of longevity and good fortune, while dragons represented power and strength. Tigers were seen as fierce but noble creatures who could ward off evil spirits. All 3 animals were popular motifs in Shang Dynasty art. Together, they convey a sense of the wealth and sophistication of the Shang court. In addition to hosting lavish banquets, the Shang kings also enjoyed hunting trips. One bone commemorates a successful hunt in which the king and his courtiers killed a large number of deer. Deer were an important animal during the Shang Dynasty and were often sacrificed to the gods. They were also a common motif in art and literature. The king's hunting prowess was a source of great pride for the Shang Dynasty. The oracle bones contain several other references to successful hunts. These hunts were not just for sport, however. They were also a way to provide food for the kingdom and to obtain materials for making weapons and tools. Hunting was an integral part of life during the Shang Dynasty. These are just a few of the ways that Shang kings and nobles enjoyed themselves. They also had time to indulge in their passions, such as writing poetry or playing music. One bone, for instance, mentions a poet who was blind. Despite his disability, he was able to produce beautiful works of art that celebrated the natural world. Another bone refers to a musician who played an instrument called the sei, which was similar to a harp. Music was an important part of Shang Dynasty culture and was often used to accompany religious ceremonies or entertain guests. In conclusion, the oracle bones provide us with a fascinating glimpse into the lives of Shang kings and nobles. Although they had many responsibilities, they were also able to find time to enjoy themselves. They hunted, they feasted, and they made art. They also had to deal with the same mundane problems that we all do, like health issues and farming. In this way, the oracle bones remind us that even the most powerful people in the world are still human beings. The most prominent dynasty in ancient China, the Shang Dynasty, is best known for being the home of the last imperial line of shaman kings who ruled with divine mandate until their demise in 1600 BC. Their downfall would mark the end of the Second Age of China and usher in the First Age of philosophical teachings. But before their fall, they were one of the first civilizations to master the written word. For every civilization, writing is the key to connecting the past with the future, the means by which knowledge is preserved and transmitted from one generation to the next. The oracle bones, with all their simplicity and initial roughness, marked the beginning of that journey, one that would eventually form the foundation for the development of Chinese characters, and from there, influence many other cultures around the world. Today, we live in a time where technology, digital media, and modern writing systems have replaced the ancient tools of record-keeping. However, the legacy of writing, from its humble beginnings on bones, remains with us, guiding how we preserve and pass down knowledge, culture, and history. So let us take a closer look at the fascinating story of the first Chinese writing system and why it's so important. Before diving into the topic, please support us by subscribing and liking the video. This helps us continue producing videos of the highest quality. Let's get started. In the heart of China, nestled among the rolling hills and ancient ruins, lies a village called Inyang Henan Province. Here, beneath the soil of this seemingly ordinary place, sleeps a treasure trove of history. Between 1600 and 1046 BC, it was here that the Shang Dynasty thrived, leaving behind a legacy that would shape the course of Chinese civilization. During this era, the Shang kings held the reins of power, and the city of Yin, located near present-day Anyang, served as their capital. It was within the walls of Yin that the Shang kings made their mark on the world. They forged magnificent weapons, crafted exquisite art, and most notably delved into the mysteries of divination. The Shang kings, much like many other rulers of their time, believed in communicating with the gods, seeking their guidance and favor. To do this, they turned to divination, a practice aimed at uncovering hidden knowledge and predicting the future through various means. Among the most intriguing methods employed by the Shang kings was the use of turtle shells and tortoise plastrons. These remnants of ancient rituals serve as tangible links to a bygone era, offering us a window into the beliefs and practices of a vanished civilization. As the Shang Dynasty progressed, the scale of their kingdom grew, their influence spread, and so did their need for a more efficient system of record-keeping. Enter the oracle bones, simple yet monumental artifacts that marked a pivotal moment in human history. Initially, the oracle bones were nothing more than ordinary shoulder bones from cattle, deer, or occasionally turtle shells. It was the markings etched into these bones that transformed them into invaluable historical treasures. The Shang Dynasty, renowned for its advancements in bronze casting and craftsmanship, possessed the expertise to inscribe intricate patterns and symbols onto these surfaces. What began as a practical tool for divination soon evolved into a sophisticated system of writing. Each bone became a canvas for recording significant events, astronomical observations, historical accounts, and even personal reflections. The process of deciphering these ancient markings has been likened to solving a cryptic puzzle, demanding patience, skill, and a deep understanding of the historical context. Yet as scholars have painstakingly deciphered the secrets embedded within the oracle bones, a rich tapestry of Shang Dynasty life has emerged. From tales of war and natural disasters to records of agricultural seasons and royal lineages, these bones have yielded invaluable insights into one of China's earliest civilizations. The transition from spoken language to written characters was a monumental leap in human communication. With the Shang Dynasty's mastery of oracle bone script, the barriers of space and time were bridged, allowing for the preservation and transmission of knowledge across generations. This innovation laid the groundwork for the development of Chinese characters, which have stood the test of time and continue to be used in various forms even today. The oracle bones, with their weathered surfaces and enigmatic symbols, are not merely relics of the past. They are living testaments to the ingenuity and cultural brilliance of the Shang Dynasty. As we continue to explore and comprehend the messages encoded within them, we pay homage to the legacy of a civilization that dared to communicate with the divine, and in doing so left an indelible mark on the course of human history. One might wonder why the Shang kings felt the need to seek divine guidance on mundane matters. You see, the Shang kings weren't your typical rulers. They were deeply entrenched in the spiritual realm, believing that their authority was bestowed upon them by the heavens. Unlike many of their contemporaries, they didn't just hold political power. They were also considered intermediaries between the mortal world and the realm of the gods. This belief system wasn't just a matter of faith. It was deeply intertwined with their concept of justice and their responsibility to their people. For the Shang kings, every decision they made had far-reaching consequences, affecting not only their subjects, but also the delicate balance between humanity and the divine. When faced with such weighty decisions, it's understandable why they would turn to divination for guidance. By consulting the gods through rituals like those performed with turtle shells and oracle bones, they sought to align their actions with the will of the heavens. In doing so, they believed they could ensure the prosperity of their kingdom and the well-being of their people. This practice wasn't merely a superstitious custom. It was an integral part of their governance, a way to legitimize their rule and make decisions that were not only in the best interest of their kingdom, but also in harmony with the divine order of the universe. Now, the Shang kings weren't the only ones utilizing the power of divination. In fact, divination was a common practice across many ancient cultures, each with its own unique methods and beliefs. The ancient Mesopotamians, for instance, would cast lots or consult animal entrails to gain insight into the future. The Egyptians kept a keen eye on the flight patterns of birds, interpreting them as omens. Even the Greeks had their oracles, most famously the Oracle of Delphi, where priests would deliver cryptic messages supposedly inspired by the gods. Across the vast expanse of human history, the desire to understand and predict the future has been a constant. The tools and methods may have varied, but the underlying human need for guidance and understanding has remained universal. But the Shang Dynasty took things a step further. It created one of the earliest known writing systems, which allowed them to record their observations and experiences on oracle bones. This practice not only helped them track changes over time, but also ensured that knowledge of divination techniques and interpretations was passed down through generations. In essence, the Shang Dynasty elevated divination from a mere practice to a sophisticated system of communication and record-keeping, leaving behind a legacy that would influence Chinese culture for centuries to come. As the Shang Dynasty entered its later years, internal strife and external pressures began to mount. Around 1046 BC, the once mighty empire was challenged by the rising power of the Zhou dynasty, marking a pivotal point in Chinese history. This transition of power, known as the Shang signifies the end of an era and the dawn of a new beginning. During this turbulent period, the Shang kings found themselves on the brink of losing their ancestral lands, a prospect that threatened to shatter the very foundations of their kingdom. Faced with imminent danger, they turned to their well-honed divination practices, hoping for a glimmer of hope in the midst of despair. The inscriptions on the oracle bones reveal a desperate plea for divine intervention. The Shang kings sought reassurance, guidance, and perhaps even a miracle to save their dynasty from the jaws of extinction. As the Zhou forces closed in, the atmosphere in the Shang court was thick with tension and uncertainty. The once proud rulers now found themselves grappling not only with political turmoil, but also with the potential erasure of their bloodline and the collapse of everything they had built. The pressure to succeed in their divinations was immense, as the fate of an entire dynasty hung in the balance. It was a high-stakes game of destiny where the stakes could not be higher. Ultimately, despite their best efforts and the divine mandate they believed they possessed, the Shang dynasty was unable to escape the relentless march of time and the inevitable shift in power. The Shangzhou marked a turning point in Chinese history, bringing to an end the Second Age of China and paving the way for the Western Zhou dynasty to ascend to power. With the fall of the Shang dynasty, the practice of divination and the use of oracle bones gradually faded into obscurity. However, the legacy of the Shang people lived on in the annals of Chinese history. Despite their disappearance from the political stage, their contributions to Chinese culture, particularly their advancements in writing and record-keeping, continued to resonate. As the centuries rolled by, the wisdom and insights encoded in the oracle bones were rediscovered, offering modern scholars an unparalleled glimpse into one of China's earliest civilizations. The deciphering of these ancient texts has not only enriched our understanding of the Shang dynasty, but has also illuminated broader aspects of Chinese culture, mythology, and society. The Shang dynasty may have faded from the historical spotlight, but their impact on Chinese civilization and our comprehension of its rich tapestry remains profound. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and like it. They say that every society's art reflects the soul of its people. Well, we believe the same goes for writing systems. Welcome to this channel. Today we are diving into the world of Chinese characters. We will explore the intriguing ways they convey meanings beyond words. These characters are not just symbols on a page. They're windows into the heart and mind of one of the world's oldest civilizations. So let's embark on this linguistic adventure and discover the secrets hidden within these fascinating characters. Our journey starts over 3,000 years ago with the oracle bones. Imagine a time when writing was not confined to paper or screens, but was etched onto bones. This was the reality during China's Shang and Zhou dynasties, where the art of writing began on tortoise shells and animal bones. These oracle bones became the foundation of Chinese characters, each stroke carrying the hopes, fears, and stories of a bygone era. The earliest known examples date back to the 16th century BCE during the Shang dynasty, although their exact origins are still debated. What is certain is that these inscriptions played a pivotal role in shaping early Chinese culture. The practice involved heating one end of a turtle shell or animal bone over a fire until it cracked. The cracks were then interpreted as messages from the gods. Over time, these inscribed bones became a way to record not just divine messages, but also historical events, astronomical observations, and even literary compositions. The oracle bones represent the dawn of a civilization's expression, a testament to the human desire to communicate and interact with the world around us. As our journey through the world of Chinese characters continues, we will delve deeper into their unique characteristics and the profound impact they have had on Chinese culture. The oracle bones serve as a reminder that the written word has been an integral part of human history since its inception. Moving forward in time, we encounter the next significant chapter in the evolution of Chinese characters: the bronze inscriptions. Emerging during the Shang Dynasty, which began in 1046 BCE, the bronze inscriptions marked a new era in the development of Chinese writing. Unlike the oracle bones, which were primarily used for divination and religious purposes, the bronze inscriptions were deeply intertwined with the rituals and ceremonies of the nobility. They served as a way to commemorate important events, record genealogical records, and display the power and prestige of the ruling class. The inscriptions were typically made on ceremonial vessels, such as wine containers and ritual bells, often featuring intricate designs alongside the text. This period saw the standardization of many characters and the introduction of more complex writing methods. The bronze inscriptions became a symbol of the Shang Dynasty's cultural and political achievements, reflecting the values and beliefs of a society that was increasingly urbanized and hierarchical. As we continue to uncover the secrets of Chinese characters, the bronze inscriptions serve as a reminder of the enduring legacy of ancient Chinese civilization and the profound influence it has had on the course of human history. Another key aspect of Chinese characters is the concept of radicals. These basic components provide a structural framework for understanding and remembering the meaning of complex characters. Each radical carries a specific semantic value, and combining them allows for the creation of a vast array of characters with diverse meanings. For example, the water radical indicates something related to water, while the fire radical signifies anything associated with fire. By understanding the meaning of these radicals and how they combine, one can decipher the meaning of new and unfamiliar characters more easily. This system of radicals has been instrumental in the transmission and study of Chinese characters throughout history. It provides a logical structure that helps learners grasp the intricacies of this complex writing system. Furthermore, the radicals offer a glimpse into the historical evolution of Chinese characters. Some radicals can be traced back to the pictographic symbols found on the oracle bones and bronze inscriptions, showcasing the continuity and development of the writing system over time. The study of radicals is an essential part of learning Chinese characters and is fundamental to understanding the richness and complexity of the language. Now, let's talk about how Chinese characters are formed. The creation of a single character is a beautiful blend of art and language. Generally, a Chinese character consists of two main components: the radical and the phonetic element. The radical, as we mentioned earlier, is the semantic component that conveys the basic meaning of the character. It often represents a concept or a simple idea and serves as the building block for more complex meanings. On the other hand, the phonetic element is responsible for the pronunciation of the character. It helps to ensure that the written word is pronounced correctly and aids in the memorization of the character's sound. The combination of these two elements results in a unified character that encapsulates both meaning and sound. It's like a perfect marriage of form and function. But the beauty of Chinese characters doesn't end there. Many characters incorporate additional elements that add layers of meaning and complexity. For instance, some characters include a self-contained semantic element that further clarifies the meaning of the character. These characters often have multiple strokes or components that come together to create a harmonious whole. The process of creating Chinese characters is a testament to the ingenuity of the ancient scribes who developed this writing system. It reflects a deep understanding of language and a keen observation of the world around them. Each stroke, each curve and angle is carefully crafted to convey a specific meaning or concept. It's as if each character is a miniature work of art. In essence, the formation of Chinese characters is a harmonious blend of simplicity and complexity, where basic elements come together to express a myriad of meanings and concepts. It's a delicate balance that has stood the test of time and continues to captivate those who study and appreciate this ancient writing system. Chinese characters possess a unique characteristic that sets them apart from many other writing systems: their polysemous nature. A single character can have multiple meanings depending on the context in which it is used. Take the character for the color red, for example. In its most common usage, it refers to the color itself, but it can also mean beautiful or good. This polysemy allows for a more nuanced and poetic expression in the Chinese language. Writers can play with the multiple meanings of a character to create layers of meaning and ambiguity in their work. It's like having a chameleon-like writing system that adapts to the needs of the writer and the listener. The polysemy of Chinese characters also reflects the dynamic and evolving nature of the language. As society changes and new concepts emerge, existing characters can take on new meanings to encompass these developments. It's a remarkable feature that allows the language to grow and adapt, without having to invent entirely new characters for every new idea. The polysemy of Chinese characters adds a layer of complexity and richness to the language, making it a truly fascinating and expressive writing system. Furthermore, Chinese characters have a profound ability to evoke emotions and aesthetics. The very structure and composition of the characters contribute to their emotional impact. For example, the character for the moon, with its gentle curves and elegant strokes, evokes a sense of tranquility and beauty. On the other hand, the character for danger, with its sharp angles and aggressive lines, conveys a sense of urgency and peril. This emotional resonance is not merely a product of the shapes themselves, but also of their historical and cultural associations. The Chinese have long appreciated the aesthetic qualities of their writing system, and poets and calligraphers have celebrated the beauty of Chinese characters for centuries. The art of calligraphy, in particular, elevates the writing of Chinese characters to a highly refined form of self-expression. Calligraphers spend years mastering the delicate balance of brushstrokes, ink, and paper to create works of art that embody the essence of Chinese poetry and philosophy. The emotional depth and aesthetic appeal of Chinese characters have been an integral part of Chinese culture, shaping artistic expression, philosophical thought, and the spiritual connection between humans and the written word. Looking ahead, Chinese characters continue to play a vital role in contemporary Chinese society. Despite the advent of new technologies and digital communication, writing in Chinese characters remains an important aspect of education, literature, and cultural identity. As China engages with the world on a global scale, Chinese characters serve as a bridge to its rich history and cultural heritage. Efforts are being made to preserve and revitalize traditional writing practices, while also adapting to the evolving needs of modern communication. The future of Chinese characters is bright, and they will undoubtedly continue to shape the cultural landscape of China and the world for generations to come.
Ow.
Chinese characters are much more than just symbols or signs. They are gateways to understanding one of the world's oldest and most influential cultures. Through their unique features, evolution, and profound impact on Chinese society, these characters offer a glimpse into the heart and soul of China. They tell stories of ancient oracles, whisper tales of emperors and dynasties, and reflect the wisdom and poetry of a civilization that has thrived for millennia. To learn Chinese characters is to embark on a journey of discovery, not just of a language, but of a world of profound beauty and cultural richness. It's a journey that opens up new perspectives, deepens our understanding of the world, and connects us to a legacy that has shaped the course of human history. And as you continue to explore the world of Chinese characters, remember that each stroke, each curve and angle holds a universe of meaning. Embrace the challenge, revel in the complexity, and let these characters guide you through the enchanting labyrinth of Chinese culture. Who knows? You might just find yourself falling in love with the elegance and poetry of one of the world's most exquisite writing systems. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the world of Chinese characters. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to show your support. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about how the oracle bones influenced other countries in East Asia, like Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. Before we get into it, if you guys could do me a favor and just hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's first start with Japan. So the oracle bones originated in China, and their influence didn't remain confined to China alone. The birth of Chinese characters derived from the oracle bones was the seed that eventually spread to other East Asian cultures like Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. In fact, the Japanese writing system, which consists of two components, hiragana and katakana, are phonetic scripts. They adopted a third component called kanji, which are the Chinese characters. Unlike the phonetic scripts, which represent the pronunciation of syllables, kanji represent either the pronunciation of a word or the meaning of the word. Some kanji are read the same in both Chinese and Japanese, like Shen, for example, pronounced as san in both languages. Other kanji are pronounced differently in each language. It's like the kanji for king, which is pronounced as gong in Chinese and as u in Japanese. But because they're pronounced differently in Japanese, they actually have a different kanji for the Chinese character for king. It's spelled as wam. And because this was the case for many of the Chinese characters, Eventually, the Japanese created a phonetic representation for it. And that's how we got the Japanese reading of the Chinese character for king, which is U. So because of this, the Japanese language uses three scripts. We have hiragana and katakana, which are the native phonetic scripts of the Japanese language. And then we have kanji, which are the Chinese characters. Kanji make up approximately 60% of Japanese texts. Some kanji are used exclusively in formal writing. Others appear in both formal and informal writing, and some are used in informal writing only. Many kanji have multiple readings depending on whether they are used as part of an indigenous Japanese word or a loan word from Chinese. A lot of kanji have more than one meaning as well, which can lead to ambiguity in interpretation. For instance, the kanji for hair and for to be read as ko depending on the context. Japanese people began using Chinese characters around the 4th century. During the Kofun period, it started off very slowly, but eventually during the Nara period when Buddhism came to Japan. That's when things really started picking up, and we started seeing a lot more Chinese influence during this time. Eventually, during the Heian period, we saw the creation of kana, which was the native phonetic script of Japan. But even though kana was created, kanji continued to be imported from China. The Chinese characters were initially written with a brush pen and black ink on a piece of paper. Later on, starting from the 8th century, woodblock printing was introduced to Japan, and eventually by the 11th century, we had movable type printing, which allowed for mass production of texts. And the most common type of books produced during this time were Buddhist scriptures and then texts containing Chinese poetry. The spread of Buddhism played a significant role in the adoption and dissemination of Chinese characters in Japan. Buddhist monks actively engaged in translating Buddhist texts from Sanskrit into Chinese and then subsequently into Japanese. These translations not only preserved Buddhist teachings, but also facilitated the transmission of Chinese culture and vocabulary. In addition to religious texts, Chinese characters were also used in various secular contexts, including poetry, essays, and historical records. As diplomatic and trading ties between Japan and China strengthened, the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultural practices flourished. Chinese characters served as a lingua franca, enabling communication and cultural exchange between the two nations. The Chinese writing system's influence extended beyond mere orthography. Its sophisticated structure and philosophical depth left a lasting impact on Japanese aesthetics, ethics, and worldviews. Concepts like Confucian ethics, Taoist philosophy, and Buddhist teachings, all initially conveyed through Chinese characters, profoundly shaped Japanese intellectual and spiritual traditions. Even after kana was created, Japanese scholars continued to study and debate the intricacies of Chinese characters. They analyzed the system's logical structure, searching for underlying patterns and principles. This academic pursuit elevated Chinese scholarship to a revered position in Japanese society. By the Heian period, mastering Chinese characters was a sign of intellectual prowess, particularly among the elite. Court nobles and scholars saw proficiency in Chinese as a mark of refinement and cultivated it assiduously. The study of Chinese characters became an integral part of the curriculum in aristocratic and Buddhist schools, ensuring its continued transmission and evolution within Japanese intellectual circles. The legacy of the oracle bones lives on in Japan as kanji, an integral part of the Japanese writing system. These ancient divinatory inscriptions, born from the wisdom and ingenuity of early Chinese civilizations, have transcended time and borders to enrich the linguistic and cultural landscape of Japan. As the Japanese appreciate the profound influence of Chinese characters on their language and heritage, they also recognize the enduring legacy of the oracle bones in shaping the course of East Asian history. Next, let's look at Korea. Korean language has two main components. We have Hanja, which are the Chinese characters, and then we have the Korean alphabet, which is called Hangul. The Korean alphabet was created in the 15th century by King Sejong the Great, and it replaced Hanja gradually as the primary writing system in Korea. However, Hanja still holds significance in Korean culture and is widely used in formal and literary contexts. In fact, every single Korean word for a specific topic comes from a Chinese character. For example, the word for mother is mutsun, literally meaning mother, while the Korean word for father is futsun, literally meaning father. The influence of Chinese characters on the Korean language is profound, extending beyond mere terminology. Many Korean words, especially those related to abstract concepts, philosophy, and history, have their roots in Chinese characters. This shared linguistic heritage reflects the deep cultural and historical ties between Korea and China. The use of Hanja has not been uniform throughout Korea's history. Initially, during the Three Kingdoms period and the following Silla and Goryeo dynasties, Chinese characters were borrowed extensively from China and used alongside the native Korean language. As Korea developed its own literary traditions and cultural identity, the usage of Hanja evolved. During the Joseon dynasty, King Sejong the Great standardized and promoted the use of Hangul, the Korean alphabet, as the primary writing system. This shift was intended to make literacy more accessible to the general population, as Hangul is phonetically based and easier to learn. Despite the official promotion of Hangul, Hanja continued to be used in literature, scholarship, and formal writing. In modern times, Korea, Hanja are no longer used in everyday speech, but they remain an essential component of the Korean language. In formal settings, legal documents, newspapers, and academic publications often incorporate Hanja to add precision and solemnity to the language. Additionally, Hanja are commonly used in poetry and literature, where their aesthetic and historical connotations are highly valued. While the younger generation may have less familiarity with Hanja, older generations and those with higher education levels tend to have a stronger grasp of the characters and their meanings. Finally, let's take a look at Vietnam. The oracle bones had an enormous impact on the Vietnamese language. When the Chinese influence arrived in Vietnam, the locals didn't have a writing system of their own, so the Chinese characters were used to write Vietnamese. Now, in the beginning, this was done phonetically, kind of like how the Japanese did it. But later on, it was done semantically as well, similar to how the Koreans do it today. Eventually, in the 11th century, a Vietnamese scholar named Ngo Quyen invented the Vietnamese alphabet known as Chia Nem. Like Hangul, this was also a phonetic alphabet that aimed to replace Chinese characters. However, unlike Hangul, Chia Nem was never fully accepted and used alongside Chinese characters until the French colonial period. During the French colonial period, the Vietnamese language was officially Romanized, but Chia Nem remained popular in clandestine schools. And it wasn't until the mid-20th century that it gained wider recognition. Today, it's primarily used in literature and personal expression. In terms of Vietnamese literature, Chia Nem has left an indelible mark. It provided a unique medium through which Vietnamese writers could explore themes of love, loss, revolution, and social commentary. The rhythmic cadence and visual aesthetics of Chia Nem added a distinct charm to Vietnamese poetry and prose. It became the favored script of renowned authors and poets who utilized its flexibility to express the nuances of the Vietnamese language. The transition from the use of Chinese characters to the adoption of Chia Nem marked a significant step in the evolution of Vietnamese literature. It allowed for a more authentic and expressive representation of Vietnamese culture, independent from Chinese influences. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and tell me what you thought about the video. The evolution of ancient Chinese divination practice, from oracle bones to bronze and then to paper, was a significant one. But it was more than just a shift in materials and methods. It was also a transition in how knowledge was preserved and transmitted, laying the groundwork for many aspects of Chinese culture and science. In our previous episode, we dove deep into the Shang Dynasty's use of oracle bones for divination. We learned about their process of crafting these unique tools, inscribing questions onto them, and then meticulously recording the patterns created by the heated and cracked bones. These patterns, known as dragon bones or dragon skins, were believed to hold the answers to the queries posed by the diviners, acting as a direct line of communication between the Shang kings and their ancestors. But what's fascinating is that these oracle bones were not just used to answer immediate questions about things like agriculture or weather. They also served as repositories of knowledge, preserving information that was crucial for the continuity of various practices and beliefs, whether it was agricultural techniques, astronomical observations, or even medical treatments. These practices were encoded in the cracks of the baked bones, ensuring their survival through the ages. What makes this even more remarkable is that these practices weren't static. They evolved and adapted over time. For instance, the use of the yin-yang fish as a symbol of balance and harmony in Chinese culture can be traced back to these early divination practices. This symbol, which represents the interplay of opposing yet complementary forces, was first recorded on an oracle bone dating back to the 13th century BCE. This suggests that the concept of yin-yang was already well established and understood during the Shang Dynasty, influencing how they viewed the world and their place within it. Similarly, the practice of ancestor worship, central tenet of Chinese religion, also finds its roots in the Shang Dynasty. Oracle bones provide evidence of rituals and ceremonies performed to honor and communicate with deceased relatives. One particular bone sheds light on a ritual where offerings of millet and wine were presented to ancestors in hopes of averting disasters and ensuring good fortune. This practice not only highlights the importance of family and lineage in Chinese culture, but also shows how the Shang people believed that the line between the living and the dead was thin, and that communication between them was possible and necessary. However, the most intriguing aspect of these oracle bones is perhaps their role in the development of Chinese writing. From a modern perspective, it's easy to overlook just how revolutionary writing is. It allows us to capture and transmit thoughts, ideas, and experiences across both time and space. But when we think about the fact that writing was a completely novel invention during the Shang Dynasty, its significance becomes clear. It was a groundbreaking innovation that transformed the way humans interact with the world around them. The Shang Dynasty's use of oracle bones played a pivotal role in this transformation. The earliest known example of Chinese writing dates back to the late Shang Dynasty, around 1250 BCE, and was found on a tortoise shell. This discovery is monumental because it provides direct evidence of how writing emerged from the context of divination practices. The characters inscribed on the shell are believed to represent the names of months, indicating a sophisticated understanding of timekeeping and calendrical systems. As writing became more widespread, it evolved from being solely associated with divination. It began to be used for a variety of purposes, including record-keeping, literature, and communication. This diversification of uses led to the creation of new characters and writing styles, gradually forming the basis of the Chinese writing system we know today. The evolution of writing from oracle bones to bronze and finally to paper was driven by the need for more efficient and accessible methods of recording information. Oracle bones, while durable, were not the most convenient writing surface. Extracting the thin inner layer of the bones for writing was a laborious process, and the fragile material required careful handling. Bronze, on the other hand, provided a more robust and readily available surface for writing. During the spring and autumn and warring states periods, small bronze plates known as jades were used extensively for recording. These jades, often inscribed with historical events and philosophical ideas, acted as precursors to paper documents. The invention of paper in China around the 2nd century CE marked another significant leap forward. Paper offered a cheaper, lighter, and more flexible writing surface, facilitating the wider dissemination of written material. By the time of the Han Dynasty, paper had become the primary writing medium, allowing for the mass production of books and the flourishing of literature. The shift from oracle bones to bronze to paper wasn't just a technological progression. It reflected a growing need for more sophisticated record-keeping and communication methods as Chinese society developed. The early use of writing and divination during the Shang Dynasty laid the groundwork for this evolution, demonstrating the power of the written word to preserve and transmit knowledge across generations. Now, let's return to the story. The early Chinese people didn't just see the written word as a practical tool for record-keeping. They imbued it with a sense of the divine. Writing became a conduit through which ancient wisdom could be passed down to future generations, shaping the cultural and scientific landscape of China for centuries to come. To them, the act of writing wasn't merely putting pen to paper. It was a way to tap into a deeper, more profound understanding of the world. They believed that the written word held a kind of spiritual energy that could connect the present with the wisdom of the past. This reverence for writing as a means of preserving and transmitting spiritual and cultural knowledge played a vital role in shaping Chinese civilization. For instance, the Confucian tradition, which had a profound impact on Chinese philosophy and ethics, places great emphasis on the study of ancient texts. By studying the writings of earlier generations, the Chinese sought to learn from the experiences and insights of those who came before them. This practice of looking to the past for guidance in the present is deeply rooted in the belief that wisdom is timeless, and that the lessons of history can provide valuable insights into the complexities of life. Moreover, the Chinese believed that the written word had the power to shape and influence the world around them. Characters and symbols weren't just abstract representations of ideas. They were believed to possess inherent power and meaning. This belief is evident in practices such as the use of calligraphy as a form of art and the creation of seals, which are still highly valued in Chinese culture today. The ancient Chinese viewed writing as a way to harmonize the individual with the universe. Through writing, they sought to align themselves with the natural order of the cosmos, believing that by understanding and following the patterns and rhythms of the world, they could achieve a sense of balance and harmony in their lives. This holistic view of writing as a means to achieve harmony is a recurring theme in Chinese philosophy and continues to influence artistic and literary traditions. The importance of writing in Chinese culture is further highlighted by the development of one of the world's earliest paper-making technologies. Ceylon, a court official during the Han Dynasty, is credited with inventing a method to produce paper from plant fibers, such as hemp and bamboo. This innovation made writing materials more accessible and helped to spread the practice of literacy throughout society. During the Shang Dynasty, printing technologies flourished, allowing for the mass production of books and other written materials. This made knowledge and information more widely available, contributing to the flourishing of art, science, and commerce. The impact of writing on Chinese culture is truly profound. It has shaped not only how the Chinese perceive the world, but also how they interact with it. Writing has been instrumental in transmitting knowledge, preserving history, and fostering a sense of cultural identity. From the early days of divination on oracle bones to the creation of paper and printing technologies, the evolution of writing in China reflects a deep reverence for the power of the written word. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time to explore the fascinating world of ancient Chinese divination and the evolution of writing. If you're as fascinated by this topic as I am, I invite you to dive deeper into the rich history and cultural significance of the oracle bones and their enduring legacy. As we look back at the journey of writing, from the first cracks on bones to the sophisticated characters of today, we are reminded of how far we've come. The legacy of the oracle bones is not just about the past, it's about the future. The written word allows us to look back, to reflect on the wisdom of those who came before us. Through writing, we connect with our ancestors, with history, and with the very fabric of civilization. And as we move forward, we continue the legacy of the oracle bones, passing on stories, knowledge, and memories to future generations. Writing is the bridge between the past and the future, and the journey that began with the oracle bones is far from over. It will continue to evolve, inspire, and connect people across the world for generations to come. You can probably read this, right? What about this? How about this? You're scratching your head, aren't you? These are all ancient Chinese texts, and though thousands of years old, they've been etched into durable materials, so they've survived for thousands more. And it's thanks to them that we can trace the evolution of writing from its earliest days. This is the story of how early humans communicated with each other through text, and how those messages are still being delivered today. Before there were phones, TVs, or radio, before there was even paper, there was the bone. It wasn't your typical newspaper, but it did the job, recorded information, preserved culture, and played a crucial role in communicating with the dead. At least that's what the oracle bones of China did. The oracle bones are some of the oldest examples of written communication ever found, and offer a fascinating glimpse into the earliest forms of writing. But here's the catch. They weren't exactly written on paper. They were inscribed on animal bones and turtle shells. The Shang Dynasty, which ruled over much of northern and central China around 1600 BCE, had a particular fondness for pigs, cattle, sheep, tortoises, and, yes, birds. Their love for these animals went beyond just eating their meat, as they also used the bones and shells for divination purposes. To put it simply, the Shang would make predictions about the future by asking the spirits for help. Now this practice, known as osteomancy, involved heating up the bones or shells and then cracking them while asking questions. Then skilled readers would examine the cracks and attempt to interpret the patterns, trying to decipher the will of the gods. Now, enter the diviner, someone who was skilled in the art of reading these cracked bones and predicting the future. Each crack and crevice held a message, a cryptic code that only the most learned scholars could understand. One famous diviner named Yugung was said to be so skilled that he could interpret the most complex patterns with ease. He became an important advisor to the king, helping him make decisions on everything from military strategy to agriculture. But his skills were not without controversy. Some accused him of cheating, of somehow manipulating the bones to give the answers he wanted. Yet despite the skepticism, the practice continued, and the bones kept their secrets close to their weathered surfaces. The Shang were incredibly thorough, recording details about each divination session on the bones themselves. It would carve the question being asked, the diviner's name, the date, and the answer. It might sound strange to us today, but for the Shang, this was their way of connecting with the divine. They believed that the patterns formed on the bones were messages from the gods, and they took great care to document them. But why do we think that these are the earliest examples of written communication? Well, let's take a closer look at these bones. When archaeologists discovered them, they realized that the inscriptions were not just random markings. They were actually a system of communication. The Shang had developed a way of representing words with simple lines and dots. And when put together, these lines and dots formed a kind of language. They didn't have an alphabet like we do today, but they had a system that worked for them. They used these inscriptions to keep track of important information, such as the number of livestock, the results of battles, and even the phases of the moon. In a way, these bones were their version of a newspaper, a way of keeping track of important events and sharing them with others. As you may have noticed, the surface of these bones is often very worn. This is because they were passed down through generations, each new owner adding their own inscriptions to the bone. It's like an old family heirloom, except instead of being passed down from a parent to a child, it was passed down from one diviner to the next. This meant that some bones had inscriptions going back hundreds of years, creating a sort of historical record that survived the test of time. So why are these bones so special? Well, for one thing, they predate paper by thousands of years. The earliest known pieces of paper were made in China around 100 AD, but the Shang Dynasty was around 800 years before that. They were using bones and shells to communicate and record information before paper even existed. This makes them an important part of China's cultural heritage, a tangible link to the country's ancient past. The Shang Dynasty lasted for nearly 300 years, leaving behind a vast array of oracle bones that detailed the daily life, beliefs, and customs of the time period. For example, one bone reveals a conversation between a king and his diviner. The king asks if he will win an upcoming battle, and the diviner, using his powers of osteomancy, attempts to predict the outcome. The inscription records the question, the answer, and the date of the divination. This type of information provides invaluable insight into the Shang's way of life. We learn about their values, their fears, and their hopes for the future. But the oracle bones are not just a collection of historical artifacts. They are a testament to the human spirit of discovery and exploration. The people who lived during the Shang Dynasty were curious about the world around them, and they wanted to understand it better. They didn't just accept what they saw, they questioned it and tried to find explanations. The fact that they developed a system of writing to record their observations and communicate with each other shows their desire to understand and interact with the world in a deeper way. It might seem obvious to us now that we need a system of writing to communicate effectively, but back then, it was a revolutionary idea. Writing allowed the Shang to share their knowledge, record important information, and express themselves in a way that had never been possible before. It was a tool that helped them make sense of the world around them and connect with others. However, it wasn't all smooth sailing for the oracle bones. After the Shang Dynasty fell and new rulers took over, many of the old ways were abandoned. The art of osteomancy fell out of favor, and the bones were lost to the sands of time. It wasn't until centuries later that they were rediscovered and brought to light. When archaeologists unearthed the first batch of oracle bones in the mid-1800s, the world was stunned. These fragile fragments of history revealed a way of life that was completely foreign to Western scholars. Many experts were skeptical at first, believing that the bones were fake or that the inscriptions were too complex to be true. But as more and more bones were uncovered, it became clear that this was an important discovery. The oracle bones provided a window into a world that had been lost for centuries, allowing modern scholars to understand the Shang Dynasty like never before. And here's the thing: the work done by those early Shang diviners paved the way for writing as we know it today. Their system of lines and dots evolved into one of the most sophisticated writing systems in the world, Chinese. And Chinese writing has influenced countless other languages and cultures. So the legacy of the oracle bones lives on in every book you read, every article you skim, and every comment you post online. In fact, the oracle bones played a pivotal role in shaping the course of human history. If it weren't for their use of writing, we might not have developed many of the technologies and cultural achievements that we take for granted today. The oracle bones are a reminder that every great achievement starts with a single step. And in the case of writing, that step was a tiny line scratched into a bone. So the next time you pick up a book or open your laptop, take a moment to appreciate the long and winding path that led to that moment. The oracle bones didn't just leave behind a historical record. They left behind a legacy of human ingenuity and cultural preservation. They remind us that the power of the written word is everlasting. Whether you're scrolling through social media, reading a novel, or signing your name to a birthday card, you're participating in a tradition that dates back thousands of years. The oracle bones show us that the desire to communicate, record, and preserve is a fundamental part of the human experience. And as long as we have stories to tell, we'll find a way to write them down. So the next time you see an old book, a weathered piece of paper, or even a digital message, remember the oracle bones. These humble artifacts serve as a reminder that the journey from spoken word to written text is a monumental one, and that the power of communication is something to be cherished. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time. I hope I've inspired you to appreciate the long and winding path that led to the way we communicate today. And who knows? Maybe I've even convinced you to take a second look at those old books and forgotten journals collecting dust on your shelf. After all, they hold within them the echoes of countless stories waiting to be discovered. This is a piece of history. It comes from thousands of years ago, and what makes it so special is what's written on it. These are called oracle bones. They're pieces of turtle shells and animal bones that were used to record messages. These were found in a place called Yinyang. It was discovered by a man named Wang Yirong. He was looking for some nice rocks to use as building materials, but instead he found something very different. These bones and shells were engraved with mysterious symbols. This was back in 1899. At first, people didn't really know what to make of these strange findings. But now we understand just how important they are. The symbols on these bones are some of the earliest examples of Chinese writing. The bones date back to between 1600 BC and 1046 BC. That's more than 3,000 years ago. People back then would put questions to the gods and then break the bones to get answers. Each line on these bones is like a little window into the past, letting us see how people lived and thought all those years ago. They wanted to know about things like farming, getting married, going to war, or even having a baby boy. So they would ask the gods for help. If the bones were cracked correctly, it meant yes. If they cracked the wrong way, it meant no. Some of the lines on the bones are actually questions that were asked about farming. It's amazing to think that even more than 3,000 years ago, people were thinking about how to grow food. It's one of the most important things for any civilization, and it's something that people still work on today. When archaeologists found these bones, they were a bit of a mystery. At first, nobody could read what was written on them. Many of the characters were unknown. Over time, experts were able to put together the meanings of many of these signs. They made it possible to read these ancient texts. But there's still more to learn. There's a lot that we don't know about these bones. For example, we don't know if they were buried with someone important after they died, or if they were just left where they were found. One thing we do know is that these bones are more than just pieces of the past. They're also works of art. The characters on them are so detailed and precise that they reconsidered some of the earliest examples of calligraphy in the world. Calligraphy is the art of writing in a beautiful way. The people who wrote these characters were true artists. If you look closely at these signs, you'll notice that they're not just simple shapes. They tell a story. Every curve and line tells the story of a civilization that lived long ago. You can almost feel the energy of the people who wrote them and the questions they asked. Now, I want to take you on a little adventure. I want to show you something really cool. Let's go on a journey to a faraway land, a place full of adventure and new experiences. We're going to see the incredible world of Chinese writing and how it started with the oracle bones. We'll start with the basics. What is writing? Writing is a way to share ideas and thoughts. It lets us express ourselves and communicate with others. It helps us remember things and pass on knowledge. The first step in writing is to have a surface on which to write, something like a piece of paper or a digital document. Then, we need a tool to make marks with something like a pencil or keyboard. Finally, we need a system of signs and symbols that we can use to communicate. That's where Chinese writing comes in. Chinese writing is one of the oldest writing systems in the world. It dates back thousands of years and has a rich history. The earliest forms of Chinese writing can be found on oracle bones like the ones we saw earlier. Back in the Shang and Zhou dynasties, people would carve these signs onto bones and turtle shells to communicate with the gods. As time went on, Chinese writing evolved. People started using paper and ink to write on, and they developed new ways to make their writing more detailed and beautiful. Today, Chinese writing is still widely used. It's the official language of China, Taiwan, Singapore, and Malaysia. It's also spoken by many people around the world. Chinese writing has had a big influence on other writing systems. For example, the Japanese writing system is based on Chinese writing, and many Korean and Vietnamese words are written in Chinese characters. Learning Chinese writing can be challenging, but it's also very rewarding. If you take the time to learn it, you'll be able to read some of the oldest books in the world. You'll also be able to appreciate the beauty of Chinese calligraphy. Now let's talk about the tools used for Chinese writing. The most important tool is the brush pen. A traditional Chinese brush pen is made from a bunch of different parts. It has a wooden handle, a metal nib, and a black ink. The nib is the part that makes the marks on the paper, and the ink is made from a mixture of different natural materials. Writing with a brush pen takes a lot of skill and practice. You have to hold the pen in the right way and apply the right amount of pressure. But once you learn how, you can write some beautiful characters. Of course, you don't need a traditional brush pen to write in Chinese. You can also use a regular pen or even a keyboard. There are also special keyboards for typing in Chinese characters. And there are also tools to help you learn Chinese writing. For example, there are apps that can help you practice your calligraphy. Now let's talk about the materials used for Chinese writing. The most traditional material is, of course, paper. Paper was invented in China more than 2,000 years ago. It was made from plant fibers and was used for writing, painting, and printing. Today, you can still buy handmade paper that's made in the traditional way. But of course, most people use regular paper. There are also other materials that can be used for writing, like cloth or wood. Sometimes people would write on silk or hemp. This was especially common before paper was invented. You can still find some old scrolls that were written on silk. Writing in Chinese can be a very personal experience. The way you write can say a lot about you. For example, your handwriting can tell people something about your personality. In Chinese culture, calligraphy is considered an art form. People spend years learning how to write beautiful characters. It's a way to express yourself and show off your skills. Whether you write with a traditional brush pen or a modern keyboard, the most important thing is that you have the chance to write. It's a privilege that many people around the world don't have. So next time you sit down to write, take a moment to appreciate the tools and materials that you have. And remember that you're part of a long tradition of writers that goes back thousands of years. This is the front page of the People's Daily, China's official newspaper. It was published on New Year's Day 2023 and contains the latest news about China's leader Xi Jinping. It's written in traditional Chinese characters which are used in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau, as well as by overseas Chinese communities. This is what it looks like in simplified Chinese characters, the version that's used on the mainland. The main difference is that the strokes of certain characters have been simplified. For example, this character for mountain is simpler now, and this one for student was simplified from this to this. If we look at the date, it says the first day of the first month of the year 2023, or in short, 2023, 1. These numbers are written in Arabic numerals. which are the ones most commonly used in the West. But these dates don't follow the Gregorian calendar. They follow the lunisolar Chinese calendar. So the Chinese New Year falls on a different date every year, between January and February. And each year is associated with one of 12 animals. In 2023, it's the Year of the Rabbit. Now, if you compare this newspaper to how Chinese used to be written, there's a massive difference. Back then, they used a type of brush pen called a maobai on special paper, or more commonly on silk. So let's take a look at this painting from 600 CE during the Shang Dynasty. You can see how these characters are written with a brush pen on silk. The writing is flowing and dynamic, just like calligraphy. But the problem is that this type of writing is not very practical when mass production is needed, especially after the invention of printing. Also, writing on paper requires a skilled calligrapher. A commoner can't write like this. And as you may know, it takes years of practice to learn calligraphy. There's no shortcuts. But everything changed when two major inventions took place: the printing press and the typewriter. The printing press made it possible to reproduce written characters faster and easier, and the typewriter made it possible for anyone to write like a calligrapher, without having to learn calligraphy first. But these two tools use completely different systems of characters. The printing press works with blocks of wood or metal that have the characters carved on them. This is called woodblock printing. So before the printing press, to print a book, you would need to carve all the characters one by one. That's why there weren't many books back then. The price was so high that only rich people could afford them. But with the printing press, we can produce hundreds of copies in minutes. All you need to do is replace the ink on the carving blocks. The first book, printed with movable type, was the Diamond Sutra, a Buddhist text from 868 CE. However, these blocks couldn't be rearranged, so the same text had to be carved over and over again. Gutenberg's printing press used movable metal characters that could be rearranged, which allowed him to print anything he wanted. This is the Gutenberg Bible, the first major book printed in Europe. Although it wasn't the first, it had a huge impact on the future, because it showed that with this new invention, we could print books much faster than before, and that knowledge could spread quickly across Europe. Many scientists think that the Renaissance was directly linked to the printing press, because suddenly everyone could read books instead of just the clergy and the rich. But these metal movable characters didn't work well with Chinese because of the number of characters. To write 10,000 words in Latin, you need 4,000 letters. But to write 10,000 words in Chinese, you need 50,000 characters. So you can imagine how many carving blocks or metal pieces would be needed. This is why the printing press wasn't introduced to China until about 1,000 years after it was invented in Europe. By then, China was already using movable type, but it was made of clay. The first Chinese book printed with movable type was the Yongle Encyclopedia in the 15th century. It contained 11,000 volumes. Now imagine how long it took to carve all those characters onto the blocks and then put them all together. Then came the typewriter. It had movable metal characters just like the printing press, but it was operated with a keyboard, so you didn't need to be a calligrapher to use it. The first commercial typewriter was invented in 1867 by American Christopher Sholes. He received a patent for it in 1868, and it was manufactured by the Remington Arms Company, hence the Remington typewriter. It uses QWERTY characters. If you've ever used a keyboard, you're probably familiar with them. But how did this get into Chinese typewriters? Well, when the Remington typewriter was introduced to China in the 1920s, someone adapted it to Chinese characters. He created a way to arrange the keys so that commonly used characters were easier to reach. This person was Zhuang Qizhao, and his work paved the way for future inventions, including the first Chinese typewriter with pinyin input, which was created by Chinese engineer and inventor Zhao Yiheng in 1958. Pinyin is a system that allows you to spell out the pronunciation of Chinese characters with Roman letters. So with this typewriter, you didn't need to memorize thousands of characters or radicals. All you needed to do was spell out the pronunciation. But things got really interesting when computers arrived. With the help of Pinyin, we could type in Chinese much faster, but we needed a lot more memory space to store the characters. Also, we needed a more efficient way to display them on the screen. This is when the idea of simplified Chinese was born. Here's a poster that explains the differences between traditional and simplified Chinese. The traditional characters are on the left, and the simplified ones are on the right. Simplified Chinese uses less strokes and fewer components. so it's easier to write and type, and it takes up less space. However, some argue that it's harder to recognize at first, especially for children. Also, some simplified characters are controversial because the original characters are considered more beautiful and artistic. When computers arrived, not everyone agreed on how to use them. Some thought we should keep traditional characters, while others preferred simplified ones. This is why there are two versions of Chinese on computers. The question is, which one is better, traditional or simplified? Which one is more efficient? Which one should I use? Well, it depends on who you ask. But let's talk about something else. Both versions of Chinese, whether simplified or traditional, are in danger of disappearing. Yes, there are about 1 billion speakers of Chinese worldwide, but they're all using different ways of writing. We're losing the diversity of scripts. Soon we might all be typing the same way. This is what I mean. Think about how we communicate today. Well, most of us rely on keyboards, whether on phones, laptops, or tablets. We don't write with pens or type with typewriter anymore. And most of us don't even use our own language. We use emojis. No matter where you live in the world, if you want to send a message, you can use emojis. In fact, emojis are becoming a universal language. Think about it. When you send an emoji, you don't need to know anything about the person on the other side, whether they speak English, Mandarin, Hindi, or Swahili. Emojis are the perfect way to express yourself without words. We use them all the time, don't we? Like when you want to say thank you, you send a thumbs up. Or when you want to show your feelings, you use a heart. And when you want to make a joke, you add some laughing emojis. But there's a problem. Emojis are taking over our conversations. We use them too often. It's easy to respond with an emoji instead of actually talking. And that's why some schools in Japan have banned emojis from their computers. They want their students to learn how to write and speak properly. But here's the thing. Using emojis is not wrong. It's just another form of communication. And just like any other form, it has its pros and cons. For example, when you send a message, you can express yourself with emojis. But sometimes it's hard to find the right emoji. And even when you do, it's not always clear what you mean. That's why we need to pay attention to how we communicate. Whether we use emojis or not, we need to learn how to express ourselves clearly and respectfully. Otherwise, we might lose our ability to communicate effectively. Chinese characters are a good example of this. They're a way of expressing ourselves, but they're also a way of thinking. When we simplify Chinese characters, we're not just making them easier to write. We're also changing the way we think about the world. We're losing the complexity and nuance of traditional characters. So next time you sit down to write, whether with a pen, a keyboard, or an emoji, remember to pay attention to how you express yourself. Don't just type or click randomly. Think about what you want to say and how you want to say it. Because in the end, it's not just about sending a message, it's about connecting with others. What do you think? Should I use simplified or traditional characters? Let me know in the comments below.
Today's lesson is about the importance of writing. Even though today's society has many ways to transmit information, such as television, videos, audio, and social platforms, writing still holds an incredibly important role in the construction and preservation of culture. In the flow of information age, we tend to underestimate the value of traditional writing.
However, the influence of writing in human history and its role in shaping our worldview and values cannot be ignored. It reminds us that even in the most advanced technological times, the essence of communication and expression lies in those strokes of a pen or the tapping of keys on a keyboard. The written word has an enduring power that transcends the boundaries of time and technology. Chinese characters are not just tools of communication, they are symbols of cultural endurance. These symbols have witnessed the rise and fall of dynasties, the evolution of society, and the changes in people's thinking over thousands of years. Each stroke, each radical carries with it the weight of history, culture, and philosophy. To understand Chinese characters is to embark on a journey through time, to appreciate the wisdom and aestheticism of ancient Chinese culture. In this lesson, we will discuss the profound meaning of Chinese characters, explore their role in preserving and transmitting culture, and reflect on the value of writing in our increasingly digital world. Let's start. The first part is the origin of Chinese characters. According to historical records, the earliest form of Chinese characters can be traced back to the 17th century BC during the Shang Dynasty. Oracle bone inscriptions were discovered on tortoise shells and animal bones found in Yingsu, the capital of the Shang Dynasty. These inscriptions were not just a record of daily life, but also a reflection of the spiritual beliefs and cultural norms of that era. During the Shang Dynasty, people believed that everything in the world was interconnected and that natural phenomena like earthquakes, floods, and droughts were messages from the gods. Oracle bone inscriptions were used to communicate with the gods, to interpret their will, and to predict the future. The Shang kings would inscribe questions on turtle shells or animal bones, and then cast them into a fire or bury them in the ground. The cracks that appeared on the bones after being heated or eroded by the soil were then interpreted as the answer of the gods. This divination method was not only a way of obtaining answers, but also a way of understanding the will of the gods and the laws of nature. Oracle bone inscriptions provide a glimpse into the religious beliefs and cultural practices of the Shang Dynasty, revealing the wisdom and ingenuity of ancient Chinese society in their exploration of the mysteries of the universe. The next stage in the development of Chinese characters can be seen in the 13th century, with the emergence of bronze inscriptions. Unlike the oracle bone inscriptions, which were mostly used for divination, bronze inscriptions were used to record more diverse content, including historical events, literary works, and philosophical ideas. With the political and economic development of the Shang and Western Zhou dynasties, the demand for recording and transmitting information increased, which led to the increasing complexity and diversity of bronze inscriptions. As bronze was more durable than turtle shells and animal bones, it became the main material for recording inscriptions. The content of bronze inscriptions is quite varied, including historical records, sacrificial texts, as well as texts related to rituals and etiquette. Among them, the most famous is the inscription on the Duke of Zhou's tripod, which records the deeds of the famous minister of the Shang Dynasty, Jiang Ziya. Bronze inscriptions not only recorded the thoughts and practices of the ruling class at that time, but also reflected the cultural norms and aesthetic standards of the society. Many bronze inscriptions are beautifully written, and the arrangement of the characters shows a high level of artistic skill. Bronze inscriptions represent an important stage in the development of Chinese characters. It not only enriched the content of Chinese characters, but also laid the foundation for the subsequent evolution of Chinese calligraphy. The use of more durable materials allowed for more extensive recording of information, which in turn facilitated the transmission and dissemination of cultural knowledge. The diversity of content also reflects the progress of ancient Chinese society and the explorative, continuous exploration of human thought. The next stage in the development of Chinese characters is the small seal script. During the Qin dynasty, the central government unified the writing system across the empire, ending the chaotic state of using different scripts in different regions. This script was mainly used on official documents and was highly standardized, ensuring that people across the vast empire could read and write with the same characters. After the Han Dynasty, the small seal script gradually evolved into the regular script. Regular script is the most widely used style of Chinese characters and is characterized by its regularity, balance, and beauty. It is often used in official documents, books, and newspapers. In the 2,000 years since the Han Dynasty, regular script has continued to be refined and perfected. Many famous calligraphers have left behind masterpieces of regular script, such as Wang Shizi's Orchid Pavilion, Preface, and Yan Zhengqing's Sacrifice Nephew manuscript. These works not only show the beauty of regular script, but also demonstrate the aesthetic standards and cultural achievements of Chinese civilization. The evolution from small seal script to regular script reflects the growing standardization and sophistication of Chinese writing. The standardization of writing facilitated communication and the exchange of information throughout the empire, while the development of regular script demonstrated the aesthetic pursuit and cultural accomplishment of Chinese society. The last one is the cursive script. Starting from the Jin dynasty, people began to use cursive script in their daily writing. This script is characterized by its flexibility and speed, allowing for faster writing and more personalized expressions. One of the most famous cursive script masters is Wang Shizi, whose work Lan Tingyi is considered the pinnacle of cursive script. Cursive script reached its peak during the Tang Dynasty and Song Dynasty. The Tang Dynasty poet Wang Wei's cursive script is known for its elegant and freehand style, while the Song Dynasty calligrapher Mi Fu's cursive script is characterized by its boldness and unrestrainedness. Cursive script not only reflects the development of Chinese writing, but also embodies the aesthetic taste and cultural accomplishments of different periods of Chinese society. The cursive script is undoubtedly an important part of Chinese calligraphy, offering a unique style and charm to the art form. Part 2. The role of writing. Writing plays an important role in the development of human society. It is not only a means of communication, but also a tool for preserving and transmitting culture, shaping people's thinking, and promoting the progress of society. Here are several aspects of the role of writing. First, writing is a means of communication. Writing allows people to record and store information, which is particularly important for the transmission of complex ideas and large amounts of data. Through writing, people can communicate with others regardless of time and space constraints, which greatly reduces the barriers to communication and facilitates the exchange of information. Second, writing is a tool for preserving and transmitting culture. Through writing, people can preserve the experience and wisdom of their predecessors and pass it down to future generations, forming a cultural heritage that belongs to the entire human race. This is particularly important for maintaining the continuity of human civilization and promoting the inheritance of cultural traditions. Third, writing helps to shape people's thinking. Writing can help people to organize their thoughts, to reflect on their own values and beliefs, and to explore the laws of the external world. By writing, people can express their thoughts and feelings freely, which can promote the development of their own thinking and the progress of human thought. Finally, writing promotes the progress of society. Writing facilitates the accumulation and transmission of knowledge, which is the basis for scientific and technological progress. Through writing, people can record and share their discoveries and experiences, which can promote the inheritance and development of human civilization and promote the progress of society. Chinese characters are not only a record of language but also carriers of cultural information. Each character contains rich cultural connotations and historical stories. Studying Chinese characters is like exploring an ancient treasure trove, where we can discover the wisdom and aestheticism of ancient Chinese culture. To master Chinese characters is to possess a key that opens the door to ancient culture. Through the study of Chinese characters, we can understand the evolution of Chinese language and thought, appreciate the beauty of traditional culture, and feel the pulse of Chinese civilization. Whether we are studying literature, history, or philosophy, Chinese characters serve as a bridge connecting us to the cultural heritage of our ancestors. Understanding Chinese characters requires not only linguistic ability, but also cultural accomplishment. We need to appreciate the historical context, understand the cultural background, and grasp the subtle meaning behind each character. This process is not only a challenge, but also a journey of self-enrichment. As we delve deeper into the study of Chinese characters, we will gradually accumulate cultural knowledge, prove our aesthetic ability, and broaden our horizons. The study of Chinese characters is not just about memorizing and recognizing characters, but also about understanding and appreciating the cultural connotation behind them. This process is like deciphering an ancient secret, which makes people feel a sense of accomplishment and joy. When we can accurately and fluently use Chinese characters to express our ideas and communicate with others, we truly possess the ability to master Chinese characters. At this point, we are not just reciting and memorizing characters mechanically, but truly internalizing them and making them an integral part of our own cultural heritage. If you like this lesson, please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to know more about Chinese culture, click on this video on the screen now. One of the wonders of writing is its ability to connect people. In an era where nations and cultures can easily communicate with each other through technology, writing still plays a crucial role in binding people together, regardless of where or when they live. Chinese characters, with their global influence, continue to serve as a cultural bridge. Learning and using Chinese characters is not just about memorizing symbols. It's about connecting with a culture, a system of knowledge that has spanned centuries. Even today, Chinese characters maintain a special role in connecting East Asian nations such as Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, allowing for shared cultural exchanges and deepening mutual understanding. The significance of writing in today's globalized world isn't just restricted to China. With the rise of language learning apps, online educational platforms, and international cultural exchanges, Chinese characters have become a global medium of communication. They help people from different cultures not only understand each other, but also appreciate each other's traditions and wisdom. When we talk about the most influential writing systems in the world, it's impossible not to mention Chinese characters. This ancient system of writing, which originated over 3,000 years ago, has left an indelible mark on not only Chinese culture, but also the cultures of neighboring countries. Today, Chinese characters transcend geographical boundaries, connecting people across the globe who share an interest in Chinese language and culture. What is it about these unique characters that makes them so appealing? And how do they continue to shape our world today? Let's dive into this fascinating topic and explore the timeless allure of Chinese characters. Chinese characters are much more than just symbols. Each character tells a story of history, philosophy, art, and culture. Learning these characters is like deciphering a secret code that unlocks a deeper understanding of Chinese society and values. The journey of learning Chinese characters is a challenging but rewarding one. It requires dedication, patience, and a genuine passion for the language, but the payoff is immense. As you start to read and write in Chinese, you'll feel a sense of accomplishment that comes from mastering a complex and ancient writing system. Moreover, your connection with Chinese culture will deepen, allowing you to appreciate its rich history and traditions on a whole new level. Whether you're interested in business, travel, or simply expanding your cultural horizons, learning Chinese characters is a valuable investment in your future. So if you've been considering learning Chinese, don't hesitate to take the first step. With the right resources and mindset, you can embark on this exciting journey and discover the many benefits that come with it. Who knows? You might even find yourself falling in love with the elegance and complexity of Chinese characters, just as many others have before you. As we look at the world around us, we see that technology has made it easier than ever to connect with people from different parts of the world. However, despite the distance that separates us, there are still things that unite us. One of these things is writing. Writing is a powerful tool that allows us to communicate our thoughts and ideas to others, regardless of where we live or what language we speak. It is a universal language that transcends cultural boundaries and brings people together. Chinese characters are a prime example of the power of writing to connect people. Despite having evolved over thousands of years, these characters continue to be used in many parts of the world, including China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. For centuries, Chinese characters have served as a common thread that connects these cultures, allowing for the exchange of ideas and the spread of knowledge. In fact, many of the world's great philosophical and literary works were originally written in Chinese characters. The works of Confucius, Lao Tzu, and Sun Tzu, as well as classic novels like Dream of the Red Chamber and Journey to the West, have all been studied and admired by people throughout East Asia and beyond. These works have not only shaped the cultural landscape of East Asia, but have also made significant contributions to world literature and philosophy. But the influence of Chinese characters doesn't end there. Even today, these ancient characters continue to play an important role in connecting people from different parts of the world. As globalization has brought us closer together, the need for effective communication has become more important than ever. Chinese characters provide a unique opportunity for people from different cultures to connect with each other and to learn about each other's traditions and values. In addition to their cultural significance, Chinese characters also have a practical application in today's world. As China's economy continues to grow, there is a growing demand for people who can read and write in Chinese. This is because knowing Chinese characters gives you the ability to communicate directly with Chinese speakers, which is essential for doing business in today's global marketplace. So why should you learn Chinese characters? There are many reasons to learn Chinese characters, but perhaps the most important one is the opportunity to connect with people from different cultures. When you learn Chinese characters, you open yourself up to a world of new friendships and relationships. You also gain access to a vast body of knowledge that has been accumulated over thousands of years. Learning Chinese characters is not just about memorizing symbols. It's about connecting with a culture. It's a way of understanding the world through a different lens and seeing things in a new light. It's also an investment in your future. As the world becomes increasingly interconnected, the ability to communicate in Chinese will be in high demand. So why wait? Start learning Chinese characters today and see where this exciting journey takes you. In conclusion, Chinese characters are much more than just a writing system. They are a window into the rich history and culture of China and other East Asian countries. In an increasingly globalized world, learning Chinese characters is not only a testament to one's dedication to cultural understanding, but also a valuable skill that can open doors to new opportunities. So whether you are a student, a business professional, or simply someone who is passionate about learning new things, I encourage you to consider learning Chinese characters. It is a challenging but rewarding journey that will surely be worth it in the end. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please don't forget to share it with your friends and family. And if you want to support us, you can make a donation through the link in the description below. We would greatly appreciate your generosity and your passion for Chinese culture. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Learn Chinese. Today I want to talk to you about the oracle bones and their importance in ancient China. This is not a topic that you will learn in any textbook or taught in any class. Because what I'm going to tell you today goes way back in time before any of the dynasties. In fact, this goes way back to the Shang Dynasty, roughly around 1600 BC. So without further ado, let's get started. In the latest episode of Let's Learn Chinese, I promised to share with you a fun fact about Chinese characters. Well, here it is. Did you know that every single Chinese character that you see around you was invented about 3,500 years ago? Oh, yes, that long ago. We can trace back most Chinese characters all the way to the oracle bones. You may be thinking, wait, what's an oracle bone? Well, an oracle bone is a turtle shell or animal bone that was used by the ancient Chinese as a form of divination tool. The oracle bones were used during the Shang and Zhou dynasties in China, and they are some of the earliest examples of Chinese writing. These bones were typically made from the shoulder bones of oxen, the leg bones of sheep, or the shells of turtles. The process of creating these oracle bones was a complex one. First, the bones had to be carefully selected, and then they were washed and scraped clean. Once the bones were prepared, they were heated over a fire until they were hot, and then they were inscribed with various symbols and characters. These symbols and characters were often used to represent numbers, months, days of the week, and other elements of divination. The bones were then placed in front of the Shang king or other members of the royal court, and the outcome of the divination would determine the course of action for the king. So now you may be asking, okay, so why should I care about these oracle bones? Why am I learning about them right now? Well, these oracle bones are important for a few reasons. First, they are some of the earliest examples of Chinese writing. By studying the oracle bones, we can learn about the earliest forms of Chinese characters and how they developed over time. Second, they provide insight into the religious beliefs and practices of the Shang and Zhou dynasties. The oracle bones show that the ancient Chinese believed that the future could be predicted through divination. And they also reveal the types of questions that people were asking about their future. Finally, the oracle bones are simply fascinating artifacts of China's rich history. They remind us of the ancient roots of Chinese culture and provide a tangible connection to the past. All right, now that you know why the oracle bones are so important, let me show you some real examples of them. Now, do one expect to understand these characters at first glance? Because even scholars who study these oracle bones have a hard time understanding them. But nonetheless, let me show you a few of my favorites. Now, this first one you may recognize. It looks like the modern-day Chinese character for water. However, you may be surprised to know that the oracle bone version of this character is actually much more complicated than the simplified version that we use today. Over thousands of years, this character has been simplified many times before we arrived at the version that we know today. The original oracle bone version of this character is quite intricate and has many different strokes. It's interesting to see how this character has evolved over time and how the ancient Chinese represented such a basic concept as water. Another oracle bone character that is recognizable is this one. If you're a fan of wushu, then you may be familiar with this character because it is the Chinese character for fist. This is actually one of the most common characters found on the oracle bones, and it is also one of the most interesting. The character consists of 3 parts, each of which represents a different aspect of the fist. The top part represents the clenched fist, the middle part represents the open hand, and the bottom part represents the knuckles. When put together, these 3 parts form the complete character for fist. And last but certainly not least is this one. This is the oracle bone version of the Chinese character for king. It's a pretty simple character, but it's also one of the most important ones found on the oracle bones. That S because the oracle bones were often used to communicate with the king, and many of the characters on the bones relate to him directly. This character reminds us of the role that the king played in ancient Chinese society and the importance of the oracle bones in his decision-making process. Overall, there are over 1,000 characters found on the oracle bones, and each one is a unique example of ancient Chinese art and culture. While many of the characters are difficult to decipher, the ones that we have been able to understand provide us with a wealth of information about the ancient world. It's truly amazing to think that these characters are thousands of years old, and yet they are still used in Chinese today. They are a testament to the longevity of Chinese culture and the power of ancient traditions. At this point in the video, I'm sure you have realized that these ancient oracle bone characters are not the same as the characters that we use today. And you're right. There are some characters that are similar, but for the most part, these ancient characters are much more complex and difficult to read. This is because the Chinese writing system has undergone significant changes over the past 3,000 years. The oracle bone script is just one of many different scripts that have been used in China throughout history. As time went on, the Chinese writing system became more simplified and efficient. This allowed for faster writing and made it easier for people to learn how to read and write. Today we use simplified characters for everyday use, but in some cases, we still use traditional characters, especially when writing poetry or calligraphy. The evolution of the Chinese writing system is a fascinating topic, and it shows how the language has adapted and changed over time. As we continue to explore Chinese, it's important to remember that the language we use today is just one small piece of a much larger puzzle. By studying the history of the language, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity and nuance of the Chinese writing system. So keep learning, keep practicing, and never stop exploring the rich history and culture of the language. When we look at the journey of writing, from its humble beginnings on the oracle bones to the sophisticated modern characters we use today, we are reminded of how far we have come. The legacy of the oracle bones isn't just about the past. It's about the future. The written word allows us to look back, to reflect on our journey as a species. It enables us to preserve our history, our culture, and our collective memory. Through writing, we connect with the past, with history, and with the very foundation of civilization. And as we move forward, we continue the legacy of the oracle bones, passing on stories, knowledge, and memories to future generations. The story of the written word is a story of progress, of enlightenment, and of the endless possibilities of the human mind. It's a story that began on the oracle bones and continues to unfold today. Every time you pick up a pen, every time you sit down to write, you are continuing a tradition that began thousands of years ago. You're carrying on the legacy of the oracle bones. So take a moment to appreciate the power of writing, the gift of literacy, and the rich heritage of the oracle bones. Let us cherish and protect this invaluable part of our cultural heritage for generations to come. If you love this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Your support means everything to us. The Jiahu people lived in a time when humans hadn't yet invented paper or printing, so they had to write on some pretty unique materials like tortoise shells and chicken bones. But these materials are fragile and easily destroyed, so most of them have turned into dust after 6,000 years. However, there was one material that stood out among all the others, the oracle bones. In this episode, we will follow the development of this incredible writing system from its earliest beginnings to the point where it is widely used by all ancient Chinese people, leaving behind an extraordinary legacy. Before we dive into the details, let's make a brief introduction to the Jiahu people. The Jiahu people were a primitive society located in the North China Plain, who began to keep domesticated animals and grow crops such as rice and wheat around 2000 BC. They lived during the late Neolithic Age and the early Longshan Age, which lasted until about 1500 BC. They were organized into small tribes, and their social structure was relatively loose. However, they did engage in long-distance trade with neighboring tribes and gradually became more prosperous and powerful. This is evidenced by the fact that they built large settlements with solid walls for protection. For example, the Gangyahu site in Anyang City, Henan Province, covered an area of approximately 340,000 square meters, and was surrounded by double protective walls. Archaeologists also found various sophisticated tools made of jade, stone, bone, and other materials, indicating their advanced production capabilities and cultural achievements. In addition, the discovery of a large number of skulls and skeletons buried beneath the floors of houses suggests that the Jiahu people began to believe in the afterlife and perform burial rituals. And later, their beliefs would play a crucial role in the emergence of the Shang Dynasty. When the Jiahu people reached their peak, they were able to produce their own agricultural products, raise enough livestock, and produce handmade tools and pottery to meet the needs of their daily life. This allowed them to have a certain degree of free time and energy to explore and understand the world around them. They began to use simple language to communicate with each other. Over time, they started to need a way to record their spoken language so that more people could understand them. So their journey to create a writing system began. At first, the Jiahu people didn't have any special materials for writing, so they could only carve their symbols onto the most readily available materials like tortoise shells and animal bones. But as their demand for writing grew, they needed a more durable and convenient material. This led them to discover the practicality of oracle bones, which were considered useless by others. Oracle bones are the shoulder bones of cattle, the most commonly used animal in the Neolithic age. The Jiahu people selected high-quality ox bones, carefully cleaned them, and then carved symbols onto the shiny, smooth surfaces. Initially, these symbols were random scribbles without any particular meaning. But over time, they evolved into a set of standardized characters through the efforts of multiple generations. But why do we think that the Jiahu people were the ones who created this writing system? Because in 1976, archaeologists discovered a collection of oracle bones in Enyang City, Henan Province. These oracle bones contain the oldest set of Chinese characters ever found, dating back 3,000 years and serving as direct evidence of the existence of an ancient writing system. What's really interesting is that they were found at the Yin ruins, the former site of the Shang Dynasty capital. And the Shang Dynasty is said to have inherited the culture of the Jiahu people. That is why scholars generally believe that the Jiahu people were the predecessors of the Shang Dynasty and the creators of the oracle bone script. So how exactly did the Jomon people carve these symbols? It's believed that they heated the tip of a bone or stone tool to a high temperature and used it as a chisel to carve the symbols. This method left deep grooves in the oracle bones, making it easy to distinguish the characters from the background. Initially, these symbols were likely used for tallying, similar to how modern accountants keep track of numbers by making marks. Over time, these marks evolved into abstract geometric shapes and eventually developed into a complete pictographic writing system. If you look closely at these ancient characters, you might be surprised to find that many of them resemble the Chinese characters used today. The character for water, for example, looks very similar to the simplified version used today. The same is true for the characters representing mountains, moon, sun, woman, and man. These similarities suggest that the ancient characters continued to be used and developed over time, eventually becoming the basis for modern Chinese characters. The evolution of these characters reflects the continuity and development of Chinese civilization over thousands of years. Each stroke and curve tells the story of a civilization's growth and change, reflecting the wisdom and creativity of our ancestors. However, not everyone agrees with this view. Some argue that the ancient characters are just symbolic decorations and not a true writing system, because they were mainly found on ceremonial objects like ritual vessels and bronze wares. They believe that the ancient characters were used to represent specific objects or concepts and had no independent meaning. Therefore, they were not a writing system that could record and transmit information independently. However, this argument is not entirely convincing, because many of the ancient characters have been found on other everyday items, such as arrowheads, axe heads, and even human bones. This suggests that they had a wider range of uses beyond ceremonial objects, and may have been used as a form of communication. Furthermore, some scholars have discovered that many of these ancient characters resemble the later Chinese characters in shape and meaning, suggesting that they were indeed the precursors to the oracle bone script and the Chinese writing system. Of course, there are still some differences between the two, but those can be attributed to the evolution of language and culture over time. Overall, the evidence suggests that the ancient characters were indeed a writing system that played a significant role in the development of Chinese civilization. Okay, let's get back to the topic. After the Jeju people figured out how to carve symbols onto the surface of oracle bones, they developed a variety of methods to erase and reuse them. They would either grind down the existing symbols or burn them away with fire. This allowed them to reuse the oracle bones for new inscriptions. The Jomon people initially used the oracle bones for various purposes, such as recording important events, communicating with gods and ancestral spirits, and preserving their cultural knowledge. As their writing system developed, they began to use them for divination. This involved burning or burying the oracle bones while making a request or prediction, and then interpreting the cracks that appeared on the bones as the answer from the gods or ancestral spirits. This practice became widespread during the Shang Dynasty and is considered the origin of Chinese divination. During the Shang Dynasty, the king would often hold ceremonies to ask for blessings before major events, such as going to war or making important decisions. During these ceremonies, priests would burn or bury the oracle bones and then crack them open to read the answers from the gods. The priests interpreted the cracks as either good or bad omens and advised the king accordingly. For example, if the cracks resembled a happy face, it was considered a good omen. If they resembled a sad face, it was seen as a bad omen. Oracle bone inscriptions provide valuable insights into the religious beliefs, social customs, and historical events of the time period. They show that the Shang Dynasty kings believed in a supreme god called Di, who was responsible for creating the world and granting power to the kings. They also believed in many other gods and spirits who controlled various aspects of nature and human life. Oracle bones also reveal that the Shang Dynasty had a complex system of social hierarchy, with the king at the top followed by nobles, warriors, scholars, and commoners. They also show that the Shang Dynasty engaged in frequent warfare with neighboring states, and that there were many natural disasters such as floods and droughts. The Shang Dynasty fell apart around 1046 BC, marking the end of the oracle bone script. Although the oracle bone script was only used for a short period of time, it left a lasting impact on Chinese history. It provided a valuable source of information for understanding the culture and society of the Shang and Zhou dynasties. It also laid the foundation for the development of Chinese calligraphy and painting. Today, the oracle bone script is still studied and appreciated by many people in China and abroad. Its unique style and historical significance make it an important part of Chinese cultural heritage. And it turns out that although the oracle bone script only lasted for about 500 years, it has been passed down through the ages and has become an indispensable part of modern Chinese characters. While we can marvel at the ingenuity of our ancestors, who created these ancient scripts, we must also recognize the contributions of countless scholars and writers who have built upon their work over the years. Their efforts have shaped the Chinese writing system into what it is today, a testament to the power of human creativity and perseverance. We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new about the history of the Chinese writing system. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.